Frank Mir and Fedor are fighting this weekend, and with the exception of some media rounds taking place this week, there's been next to no coverage of this event. No doubt the fact that it's 2018 and not 2008 has a lot to do with the fact that there's essentially no buzz surrounding this bout. We are in a new era of MMA and have been for quite some time, and this booking doesn't exactly have the same effect on the MMA fan base today as it once would have years back. Both fighters are in the latter stages of their careers, to put it mildly, and it's not just that, it's also the fact that Fedor is coming off of a loss and Mir coming off of an extended layoff. You couple all that with the fact that we have too many events in the schedule and the calendar year to begin with, and the result is having two legends of the heavyweight division, one of which who is widely regarded the greatest of all time, fighting in a few days, and the main narrative going into this bout is whether or not this fight is going to do good ratings or not. Surely this isn't what Scott Coker had in mind when he created the Bellator Heavyweight Tournament, and it sure as hell wasn't what he had in mind when he secured the great Fedor on the Bellator roster, but here we are. But you know what? I'm actually quite excited for these two to step in there this weekend. No, it doesn't have the same luster it would have had years back, but it doesn't mean that it won't be fireworks. You can criticize Bellator all you want for the freak show gimmick fights they've held over the past few years, but all of that aside, anyone who watches their shows know that a meaningful percentage of the time, the promotion delivers very entertaining fights. In fact, on some evenings, some of the bouts are so bananas, I start to wonder if there's something in the water in the arena that evening. I've been very pleasantly surprised with Bellator events a lot over the years, especially since Scott Coker has taken over. He's done wonders for Bellator. And more often than not, their high-profile fights deliver. If it wasn't for the fact that Frank Mir is coming off of an extended layoff, I think more would be made of the fact that he's 4-6 in his last 10 fights, and that he's currently on a 2-fight losing skid. But in this instance, the layoff benefits public perception at this point. Most of us, when thinking about Mir, tend to think of all the amazing things he's accomplished over the years. His recent record doesn't really have much meaning, and it would for a lot of other fighters at the end of the day, but he's Frank Mir, one of the most dangerous heavyweight BJJ specialists in the game. On the other side of the cage, we've got Fedor, who one could argue is probably the most beloved fighter in the sport. At 6-4 in his last 10 fights, his record doesn't really jump off the page, but Fedor has earned the reverence of fans to such a degree it cannot be reversed. And the fact that he's got KO'd in his last fight doesn't define him like it would most of these fighters. He is still Fedor. I also get the impression that Frank Mir won't be phoning this one in. This will be his first time fighting under the Bellator banner, so you know he wants to make an impression. Not to mention the fact that this is a fight that he's wanted for a very long time, and if you listen to his podcast or interviews of his over the past couple years, you'd know that he truly believes he still has a lot to offer to the sport. And I really have no reason to not believe him at this point. It may sound a little whack to say, but I think there's a very real possibility we see one of the most motivated Frank Mirs we've ever seen. And word has it that Fedor's been on fire in training camp this year, and that's the same song and dance we tend to hear all the time about fighters, but this is the first time I recall hearing this sort of talk surrounding Fedor, so that's really got my attention. So much happens in this sport at such a rapid pace. We never really get a chance to properly reflect, so a lot gets lost in the shuffle, but it's worth reminding you that Fedor's last fight had one of the craziest outcomes I've ever seen in a high-profile fight, when it was dangerously close to being a double knockout. And let's not forget the winner of this fight advances in the tournament to take on none other than Chael P. Sonnen. This fight deserves our attention and interest. Tune in this Saturday to the Paramount Network to find out what the hell is going to happen when Frank Mir takes on Fedor.